The chandelier in the Peninsula Hotel ballroom cast geometric shadows across 200 faces, all of them turned toward the stage where my father stood at the podium. Richard Donovan Chen didn't need a microphone to command a room, but the event coordinator had insisted. This was the annual Chen Holdings investor dinner, and everything had to project power. I stood near the kitchen doors, 26 years old, in a charcoal theory suit I'd bought myself, watching my older brother Marcus adjust his cufflinks 3 tables from the front. He'd flown in from Singapore for this. Our sister Victoria sat beside him, her Cartier bracelet catching the light as she raised her wine glass. The Shanghai development, my father was saying, represents Chen Holdings' most ambitious project to date, 42 stories, mixed use, pre-leased at 73% before groundbreaking. Polite applause. And I'm proud to announce that my son, Marcus Chen, will serve as project director. More applause. Marcus stood, nodded with practiced humility. He was 31, Harvard MBA, 2 years at Goldman before joining the family firm, the heir apparent. I hadn't been invited to sit. The speech continued. 5 more minutes of vision statements and market positioning. Then my father's eyes found me near the back. A flicker of something, annoyance maybe, crossed his face before he smiled for the investors. Before we move to dinner, he said, I want to address a family matter publicly because transparency is a Chen Holdings value. He paused. The room went quiet in that particular way that signals everyone knows something uncomfortable is coming. My youngest daughter, Isabelle, has decided to pursue interests outside the family business. We respect her choice, but I want to be clear. Chen Holdings' reputation has been built over 30 years through disciplined, proven strategies in tangible assets. We cannot associate our name with speculative ventures that could undermine investor confidence. The words landed exactly as intended. 200 pairs of eyes turned to find me. I kept my expression neutral, hands at my sides. I'd known this was coming. My father's assistant had called yesterday to say I was welcome to attend, but would not be seated at the family table. The public statement was new. He continued, softer now, almost paternal. Isabelle has always been brilliant, but brilliance without discipline is just noise. I hope she'll reconsider in time. He raised his glass. To family, to legacy, to proven value. The room drank. I left before dinner service began. Outside, the San Francisco fog had rolled in thick enough to blur the headlights on California Street. My phone buzzed, a text from Victoria. That was brutal even for Dad. You okay? I didn't respond. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that 3 months earlier I'd stopped using Chen as my professional surname. The pitch decks, the cap tables, the incorporation documents all listed me as Isabelle Reyes, my mother's maiden name. The company I'd spent 4 years building, the one my father called speculative noise, had different investors, different advisors, a different world entirely. My Uber arrived. I gave the driver an address in Soma where my co-founder Jake was waiting in our office, 4,000 square feet we'd signed for last year when our Series B closed at $12 million. Jake had his feet on the conference table when I walked in, reading something on his laptop. How'd it go? He asked. Exactly as expected. Did you tell him? No. Isabelle. Next week, I said. We tell everyone next week. Because next week the announcement would go live, the one I'd spent 6 months negotiating, the one that would change everything, the one that would make my father's 42-story building in Shanghai look like a toy project. The TechCrunch Disrupt conference occupied all 3 halls of the Moscone Center, 20,000 attendees, 400 journalists, 73 venture capital firms with booths near the main stage. I'd walked these halls as an observer for 5 years, watching other founders pitch, watching deals get announced, watching careers get made. Now I stood in the green room with Jake, our CFO Priya, and our head of product, David. In 7 minutes, we'd take the stage for what the agenda listed as Morning Keynote, the future of adaptive AI infrastructure. My phone had 11 missed calls from Victoria, 4 from Marcus, 1 from my father's office line. The press embargo had broken 2 hours early. Reuters, Bloomberg, The Information, all running the same headline with slight variations. ByteCore Systems acquired by Apex Computing for $840 million. Jake was pacing. Your family's going to be in the audience. I know. Your dad is literally in the 3rd row. I saw him when we were doing tech check. I looked at him. Good. The speech manager appeared. 2 minutes. We walked to the wing. I could see the screen now, 40 feet wide, showing the ByteCore logo I'd designed in my apartment 4 years ago when the company was just me, a credit card, and a thesis about how cloud architecture could learn and adapt in real time. The technical challenge was significant. The market timing had to be perfect, and I had to do it without access to family capital, without name recognition, without a safety net. I let that land. Let everyone in the room understand what I was saying. 4 years ago, I pitched this company to 43 venture firms. 37 said no. The 6 who said yes gave me enough for 18 months of runway. We built the MVP in 11. We signed our first client in 13. We reached profitability in 26 months. And today, ByteCore's technology will power the next generation of Apex Computing's infrastructure, serving enterprises in 74 countries. The applause started before I finished. I saw Marcus lean back in his chair. Victoria was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. My father stood up and left the hall. The investor dinner had been moved to the Fairmont 3 days after Disrupt. Chen Holdings' quarterly update for stakeholders. The same crowd as before, minus about 30 people who'd sent regrets. I'd received an invitation, addressed to Isabelle Chen, delivered by courier to ByteCore's office. I wore black this time, Armani. Hair pulled back, the Cartier watch Jake had given me as a closing gift, engraved on the back, "You built this." The ballroom was quieter than last time. My father stood near the bar, not at the podium. Marcus was talking with 2 men I recognized as Chen Holdings board members. Victoria saw me first. She crossed the room immediately. "Bella," she pulled me into a hug. $840 million? You didn't tell anyone. Would it have mattered? She pulled back, studying my face. Dad's been in his office for 3 days. He canceled the Shanghai groundbreaking. Why? Because the primary investor pulled out. They moved their capital to a tech fund. She lowered her voice. They specifically cited your acquisition as evidence that the market's shifting, that real estate development is losing ground to technology infrastructure. I said nothing. He wants to talk to you, Victoria continued. He asked me to bring you over. We walked to where my father stood with Marcus and the board members. Up close, I could see he'd aged in 3 days. New lines around his eyes, a tightness in his posture. "Isabelle," his voice was even, professional. "Congratulations on your exit." "Thank you." "Catherine Wolfe is an impressive operator. You must have made quite a pitch." The technology pitched itself. One of the board members, Gerald Huang, I remembered, stepped forward. "Miss Chen, we've been discussing diversification strategies. Chen Holdings has always focused on tangible assets, but the investor landscape is changing. We'd like to explore opportunities in the technology sector." "I see." My father's jaw tightened. "Gerald, I don't think this is the appropriate venue." "Richard," Gerald interrupted gently, "your daughter just closed an $840 million acquisition at age 26. I think this is exactly the appropriate venue." He turned back to me. "We'd like to discuss an advisory role, perhaps a board seat. Chen Holdings needs expertise in this space." "I'm not available," I said. Gerald blinked. "I'm sorry?" "I have a 3-year contract with Apex, SVP of Adaptive Systems, 200 engineers reporting to me, division budget of $420 million. I'll be based primarily in Seattle with quarterly travel to our London and Singapore offices." I met my father's eyes. "I don't have bandwidth for advisory roles." Marcus spoke for the first time. "Isabelle, this is family business." "No," I said. "Chen Holdings is your family business. Apex Computing is my career. There's a difference." The silence was absolute. Somewhere in the ballroom, someone laughed at another conversation, the sound jarring against our corner's stillness. My father's control finally cracked. "You deliberately hid this from us. You used your mother's name." "I used my name, the one I chose, because I knew that if anyone in your network knew Richard Chen's daughter was building a tech company, they'd either dismiss it as a hobby or assume I was trading on your reputation. I needed to build something that was entirely mine. You made us look foolish. I made you look like you underestimated me." I kept my voice level. "At your last investor dinner, you told 200 people that my work was speculative noise. You said brilliance without discipline was just chaos. You were wrong." Gerald cleared his throat. "Richard, perhaps we should—" "No," my father's voice was sharp. Then, softer, "Isabelle, I was trying to protect you. The technology sector is volatile. 90% of startups fail. I didn't want you to destroy yourself chasing something unstable. I didn't chase it, I built it. There's a difference." Victoria touched my arm. "Bella, he's trying—" "I know what he's trying to do." I looked at my father. "You're trying to bring me back now that it's valuable, now that it's proven, but I didn't need you when it was risky, and I don't need you now that it's safe." Marcus stepped closer. "Your family, that matters." "It didn't matter when you watched him humiliate me in front of his investors. It didn't matter when you took the Singapore promotion instead of standing up during the speech. It didn't matter when Victoria texted me afterward instead of standing up during the speech." I looked at each of them. Family is supposed to matter before the win, not after. I turned to Gerald. "If Chen Holdings wants to enter the technology sector, I can recommend 3 consulting firms that specialize in corporate transformation, but I won't be your bridge. I won't be the story you tell investors about how forward-thinking you are." I pulled a business card from my bag, handed it to him. "That's my Apex email. If you want to discuss a partnership between Chen Holdings and Apex Computing as separate entities, send me a formal proposal. I'll route it to our corporate development team." My father was staring at me like a stranger. "I need to leave," I said. "I have a board meeting in Seattle tomorrow morning. Catherine wants me to present the integration roadmap." I walked out of the Fairmont the same way I'd walked out of the Peninsula 3 days after my father's speech, alone, in the fog, with no one calling my name to stop me. But this time, I heard footsteps behind me. "Isabelle," Victoria's voice. "Wait." I turned. She stood on the sidewalk, her coat open despite the cold. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have said something, at the dinner. I should have stood up." "Yes, you should have." "I know," she pulled back. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know I'm proud of you. I've always been proud of you. I was just afraid to say it where he could hear." I looked at my sister, 29 years old, VP of Marketing at Chen Holdings, perfectly positioned to never take a risk. "Victoria," I said, "being proud isn't enough. Not anymore." I got into the Uber before she could respond. The tech press ran the story for 6 days. Forbes put me on a 30 under 30 special feature. The Wall Street Journal published an analysis piece titled "The Chen Who Got Away: When Family Legacy Meets Silicon Valley Independence." TechCrunch ran a follow-up interview where Catherine Wolfe was quoted as saying, "Isabelle Reyes is exactly the kind of builder we need more of. Technical depth, strategic vision, and complete autonomy from traditional power structures." My father did not call. Chen Holdings' Q3 earnings report, released 2 weeks later, showed a 12% decline in new investor commitments. 3 board members resigned. Gerald Huang released a statement saying he was pursuing opportunities better aligned with the evolving investment landscape. The Shanghai project was officially suspended, pending strategic review. Marcus sent one text. "We need to talk. Not for Dad, for us." I didn't respond. Victoria sent flowers to my new office in Seattle, a top-floor corner space with views of the Puget Sound. The card read, "Some of us are trying to learn." I kept the flowers. 4 months after the Disrupt announcement, I was in London for Apex's European Expansion Summit. My phone rang at 6 a.m.
my father's number. I let it go to voicemail. He didn't leave a message. But the next morning, a package arrived at my hotel. Inside was a leather portfolio, the same one his father had given him when he started Chen Holdings 30 years ago. There was a note in his handwriting. Isabelle, I was wrong. Not about the technology. I still don't understand half of what you built. I was wrong about you, about what you needed from me, about what strength looks like. You didn't ruin everything. You built everything. Your mother would be incredibly proud. Dad. I sat with that note for 3 hours, read it 16 times, tested every sentence for conditions, for manipulation, for angles. Found none. That evening, I called him. It rang 4 times. Isabelle, his voice was careful. Thank you for calling. I got your package. The portfolio was your grandfather's. He gave it to me when I was 28, starting Chen Holdings with nothing but a commercial mortgage and a business plan. I think he'd want you to have it. I looked out at the Thames, dark water reflecting city lights. Dad, I said, I don't need you to give me grandfather's portfolio to prove you've changed your mind about me. I know. That's why I'm giving it to you. Silence. Not uncomfortable, just present. I can't come back to Chen Holdings, not as an advisor, not as a bridge. I built something separate and it needs to stay separate. I know. And I can't forget what happened, what you said, how you said it. I wouldn't ask you to. Then what are you asking? He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. I'm asking if I can learn about your work, not to advise, not to invest, just to understand what my daughter built, to see what I missed. I closed my eyes, felt something shift, not forgiveness exactly, but space for something that might eventually become it. Apex is hosting a technology showcase in San Francisco next quarter. I'm keynoting. If you want to come, I'll have tickets sent to your office. I'll be there. Dad, I paused. If you come, it's as an attendee, not as Richard Chen, real estate developer, not as my father claiming credit, just as someone learning. I understand. And if you pull anything like that investor dinner, if you try to make this about you, we're done, permanently. Isabelle, his voice was firm. I'll be there as